This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all. So we're back here with another episode of Rostra, and what is neat this time is we actually have two guests on the show. We've got Helen Koch and Cam Thomas, a couple of second-year Latin students. So when I think about this topic that you guys are going to be talking about, I immediately think of the both of you. This is a topic that fits you and your interests so well. One of you tell us what the topic is and why you chose to do it.
So, our topic is the Greek and Roman deities.
We decided to do it because we very much enjoy Greek mythology. And I think that it's something, Greek and Roman mythology, and I think it's something that like more people should know about because the stories are actually so interesting, and I think it's funny how just absolutely idiotic the Greek gods are.
Agreed on multiple levels, right? So there's a lot of humor in some of the stories, and they're just kind of ridiculous, but also insanely popular. Influenced so much in terms of other literature and movies and all that kind of thing. Before you go too far, and Percy Jackson, of course. Before you go too far in this, why did the two of you ladies decide to do this together? Like I say, you are the first pair that we've had on Rostra.
Well, you know, we both figured we might as well get extra credit. No, I'm kidding. It's a bonus, but
We're good friends.
we are. We're besties, and we were like,
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, let's
I
do
love it. I love it. Okay, so obviously this is a topic. I mean, you can have an entire semester-long university course in Greek and Roman mythology. A lot of universities do. So we've got a podcast. So what are you going to tell us about Greek and Roman deities in this amount of time?
Aside from the fact that not all of them are very smart.
And just start off on that for a moment. I think is so important for people in the modern world to get a hold of. When you say deities or gods, goddesses, we often think in terms of modern understanding of what deity means. And for us, we think of deity as all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipresent. And that just isn't the case, right? Some of these people are definitely not, are pretty far from all-knowing, right? So say a little bit more about that.
So actually, we are gonna be like talking about the different gods and like what they do like represent, but not all the gods have like the same ability, and so they all like know. So they all know like different things and stuff. So like there is a goddess of wisdom, like that is, but not all of them are
Necessarily wise.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. They all make awful decisions. They're very like humane and they make human mistakes.
Yes.
Compared to like other gods you might hear about in religion.
A teacher of mine once made the comment that the Greek and Roman gods are basically like humans, just a little taller, a little bigger, a little faster, a little stronger. Right? It's just kind of just normal human characteristics made large, but not necessarily better.
Just ogres with superpowers, pretty much.
Ogres with superpowers. Okay, so on all your research, I know you guys have put some time in on this. What are some key things about the ancient gods that you think people in the modern world should know?
Definitely like how they're like related to each other,
okay,
which can get very confusing. There's a lot of like crossing over in the family tree.
Dude, the family tree, there are so many lines everywhere. I can't keep track of it.
Yeah, I can't either. But also like
night.
what like represented each one. So like a symbol or like what they were like related to or were the god of.
Gotcha.
I feel like that's important.
Gotcha.
Just like basic stories as well.
Well, we certainly want to get into that. Let's say something about that family tree business, though, and the fact that, as you said, you got lines going everywhere, and it's like you can't tell the players without a program, right? I mean, you can't tell who's going on. Part of the reason for that is that these are really folk tales, okay? And so as one group of people would take their folk legends and stories, sail to another island, sail to another place, in war, get captured, take their culture with them. And so you get all these stories that start to get mixed around. And so, and you've heard me say it in class, there's no Bible when it comes to Greek and Roman mythology. It's no set text or set of stories. So that's why you get that mix, and it seems so confusing. So, all right, talk to us a little bit about some of these symbols and perhaps powers or whatever that you've got.
All right, Helen, would you like to
Okay,
start off the list?
so first off, the king of the gods. He's known as Zeus in the Greek form and Jupiter in the Roman form. He's the god of the sky, the heavens. Some of his symbols include the thunderbolt, the oak tree, and the eagle.
Mm-hmm, right.
His wife, Hera in the Greek and Juno in the Roman, is the god of marriage, which is ironic.
Well, and of course, this is not a video, and so folks who are listening to the podcast, you're not going to realize perhaps that Helen just broke up laughing when Cam was talking about Jupiter or Zeus's wife. And then, of course, you mentioned the irony of her being the goddess of marriage. Why is that ironic, or why, Helen, did you start laughing at that?
So, Zeus isn't exactly honorable to his marriage with his wife, and has many other kids.
Again, there are a bunch of arrows
Not
coming
with
from
Hera.
Zeus.
Yeah,
in the
they're
family tree.
everywhere on the family tree.
Exactly, right.
Mainly with
All the
mortals.
We're usually with mortals. That is correct. So you've got all these deities and their goings on and so forth. And again, we can't even scratch the surface in this podcast. But what are some of the fun or really important or key stories involving these gods that you all have come across?
Well, I mean, the main one that I feel like everyone needs to know is how the gods even came to be.
Okay.
With their father Kronos, who ate all of them,
Except for
Zeus.
Right.
Because Kronos' wife was like, "Here, eat a rock instead of this child. It's totally the kid, don't worry." And then Zeus went off and then came back, murdered Kronos, and saved all of his siblings. And then they went to live on Olympus.
Definitely a very happy family.
Oh, the best. No problems there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't need therapy.
Okay, so certainly, and again, that's an important one. You're right. I think certainly some students of mythology will know that one for sure. What else did you come across?
One of my favorite stories, actually, just because I think this is like, I just think it's absolutely hilarious because this is the most like sibling thing anyone could do, is when Zeus, who's the oldest, Poseidon, who is the second, or Zeus is the youngest. Zeus is the youngest, and then Hades and Poseidon are his older brothers. How they decided who would be the god of the gods, who would rule the sea, and who would rule the underworld, which isn't hell, by the way. I would like to state that.
Yes, and we may come back on that point. That's a very important point to come to.
But so, the way they did it is they got 3 sticks, and they made one of the sticks really big, one of them was medium-sized, and one of them was smaller. And whoever drew the small stick ruled the underworld, which was Hades, and whoever drew the medium stick ruled the ocean, whoever drew the biggest one ruled the gods. So Poseidon got the ocean, and Zeus got the gods, and poor Hades was put in the underworld with, like, no arguments or anything.
Well, exactly right. I hate to say it, but got the short end of the stick. Wah, wah. Right. So you made an excellent point, and I think people who maybe do not know about mythology would get this mixed up or false understanding. That the underworld is not hell. Okay, it's not a Jewish concept of hell. It's not the Christian concept of hell. Even though it says underworld, and you think, well, that means going down, lower, right? And we have that so much as an association with hell. So if it's not hell, what was the underworld?
It's like, I don't remember the exact words for it, but pretty much it was like, that's just where everyone who died went.
Exactly.
Afterlife.
Everybody. It is just the afterlife, period.
Right.
There was a section for bad people
Yes.
and for good people and for the people who were just like, eh.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So everybody goes in the same direction, as it were. And then once you get there, then you were separated by the good souls going to Elysium or the Elysian fields, and then the bad souls going to Tartarus for the everlasting torment and that sort of thing. So why do you think that really now down through the years, obviously originally this was part of a religious system, and there were actual sacrifices and holidays and temples and all this sort of thing. Why do you think, though, here in the 21st century, you still have people who just enjoy these stories? And everything from younger children, I think mythology is always huge, especially for elementary age, but then on up, why do people still enjoy this stuff?
I think it's because of how just bizarre everything is.
It's interesting.
It is very. It's like reading a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
Not meant for children.
For sure.
It's like a picture. It's like, I don't know. It's like hard. It's like a Disney movie for adults. That's how I'm gonna explain it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is actually a Disney movie.
Which
It's just inaccurate, but
you got the Hercules movie, but yeah, that's a good way to put that. Yeah. Helen, what do you think?
I think that's mainly because these stories are interesting. Where was I? I had a trail of thought, and now it's gone.
Well, and that happens to all of us from time to time. But you were talking about them being interesting, and go ahead.
They're just different from most of the stories that people will be telling today, like with all the chaos going on and everything. It's just interesting how people thought that way.
Well, but you mentioned how bizarre earlier, Cam, but then also what you were saying there, Helen. Don't you think, though, that it's also, isn't that our lives? Our lives are chaotic, right? Our lives have strange things coming in and out of them, and people that you encounter, and things you don't expect, and so forth. And so these are some of our own stories, really just made large, and there's really an entertainment value to that. So, if I would ask this question, and of course I would get this question a lot, why should you study Latin and all that sort of thing? Why do you think it's of value to people today in the 21st century to read the ancient Greek and Roman myths? And I will say whether, for Christians to read them or even non-Christians, but just anybody in the modern world, this is ancient stuff. And it was ancient religious stuff at that.
So
what's the value?
This is gonna sound so cheesy and basic. And I already forgot what I was going to say.
High five.
Oh, wait. Helen, if you have something to say, please say it. I'm thinking now.
Well, yeah, what do you have? Why would you say, Helen, if you were talking to like a younger brother or sister? Oh, Cam's got it here.
Yeah, I remember.
Think about that. Why would you tell them to study it?
Learn from the mistakes.
Okay.
That's why. Which sounds so basic and cheesy. It literally, when it's like, why do we learn history? So we don't repeat history. It's that, except the stuff didn't, most of this didn't really happen.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think these are moral stories, and there's moral lessons, both for good and for bad. And you say it sounds cheesy and basic. I think there's a reason that comment is basic. It's because it's true. It's just true. And so you have these things, and they've stood the test of time. Humans have loved these stories for years and have learned and grown from them. So yeah. So, okay, so talk to us now. If there's something that you want to be sure that listeners to this episode would take away from your thoughts and research or anything on the Greco-Roman deities, what do you want to make sure listeners get?
Okay, I just really want to put this out there because I find it hilarious. There is a god of stupidity.
Everyone needs to know this. This is very important to the survival of society, that there is a god of stupidity.
Yes. Kalemos.
Yep.
In both the Greek and the Roman
The only
forms,
difference
just
is
spelled a
that
little
Greek
differently.
has a K instead of a C.
Exactly.
But what I want them to take away from this is definitely study this stuff. It's actually such interesting things. Also note how I've mentioned this before, how much the Greek gods are like people.
Yeah.
They're literally just if they had superpowers and were tall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to what Helen was saying there about the god of stupidity. In all seriousness, you got a god of fire, and a god of love, and a god of the sky, and a god of water, and a god of stupidity, and marriage. You mentioned marriage earlier, and all these kinds of things.
Age? Yes.
Stop and think about it for a moment.
Sorry.
So there's a professor. She's retired now from Indiana University. A good friend of mine in the classics department. named Betty Rose Nagel. And Professor Nagel used to make the comment, what you're really looking at are natural forces, right? Natural emotions that are just personified. So again, it's just natural stuff kind of made large. Okay, so you seem like you have. Oh, you found a picture of Professor Nagel. Yes. And just a wonderful lady, and I've actually had her speak to some of my students before.
She looks very nice.
So she is absolutely wonderful, and she's a translator of Ovid, who also really brought a lot of the Greco. I see there's no Bible of these things. The closest thing to that, though, would be the works of the Roman poet Ovid. Ovid wrote a lot of the Greek myths, brought them over, and put them into Latin in a big epic poem that he called the Metamorphoses. Okay, so you think that people should study it, they're going to learn from it, and so forth. I shudder to ask this question, but we're going to ask this as the last question. We'll close out our episode with this for each of you. So we think about this. What is, I can't believe I'm going to ask this, the strangest thing that you have discovered about the Greco-Roman gods or myths that you feel that you could share on this podcast? So the strangest, most interesting, fascinating, amusing, however you want to take that question. Let's hear from each of you. What's something cool? What would you say?
I don't know that I have much, like anything cool. I guess something kind of like weird.
Weird?
Talked
Okay,
about
go for that
last
then.
year,
Yeah.
third trimester, how we discovered that Zeus and Hera are like siblings, but like not.
Yes.
And that still confuses me. Like either they're siblings or they're not siblings. But they're married, and I don't understand at all.
Right. Well, no, we talked about it. You're right.
Yeah.
You remembered that well from us talking about it last year. That the idea, yes, Zeus and Hera are married. Yes, they're seen as husband and wife. And part of that is not just to see that as, oh, hey, that's something really, really gross or perverse, but as a statement of power and authority, right? So you got the king and queen of the gods. That, again, puts her right almost with him. He is the ruler of the gods. She's his sister. That almost puts her at the same level. So again, it's really something that's kind of a statement about them. This is kind of male and female, almost equals in terms of the power and the ruling. So good comment there. Helen, anything just is so bizarre, so wacko that you think, hey, I got to share this with the people?
Oh gosh, this is hard.
Sorry.
And I know you got a lot of stuff there, so... And maybe it's just the fact that there's a god of stupidity.
Yes.
Maybe that's...
There's also a god of old age.
There is a god of old age. I hate to say I may be personally moving in that direction. Well, ladies, thank you so much. It was great to have you
Wait,
on.
I have to say one more thing.
Oh, you got to say one more thing.
Hades is not the bad guy.
Hades is not the bad guy. Folks, have a great time, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GarinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.